My wife planned to drain our accounts and leave me bankrupt, and now she's telling everyone I'm the one with greedy intentions. My name is Kyle, 42M, and I thought I knew my wife, Lauren, 39F, better than anyone. We've been married for over 12 years, and though we've had our fair share of arguments, I never imagined she was capable of the level of deception I've recently uncovered. We met in our late 20s when both of us were struggling to make ends meet. Back then, it was just us against the world. Now, I can't help but wonder if everything we built together was just a lie, one she was waiting to tear down from the inside. The last few months have been tense, to say the least. Lauren and I have been distant, more like strangers living under the same roof than a married couple. It all started subtly. Quiet dinners, missed conversations, the way she would spend hours locked in our home office with the door shut. But I figured she was just stressed out from work, maybe going through a rough patch. Little did I know that behind the scenes, she was putting together a plan to take everything from me. One night, while she was out grabbing drinks with the girls, a new habit she picked up that I was already suspicious of, I was cleaning up around the house. As I was going through some papers in the office, I found a strange envelope shoved behind a stack of old tax documents. It was addressed to Lauren and marked confidential from a law firm I had never heard of. My stomach sank, and a feeling of dread washed over me as I ripped it open. What I found inside nearly floored me. It was a draft of a divorce settlement agreement, a brutal one at that. She wasn't just asking for the house or a chunk of savings. She wanted everything. Full control of our joint bank accounts, my half of the business we co-own, and even my retirement funds. And here's the kicker. The document had been drafted 3 months ago. I felt my heart pounding in my chest like it was going to burst through my ribcage. The woman I had shared my life with, who I thought had my back, had been secretly plotting to leave me with nothing. My mind raced as I pieced together all the strange behavior from the past few months. Her sudden obsession with privacy, the long nights spent working late, and the fact that she had been subtly encouraging me to make larger and larger transfers into our joint account. It all made sense now. Lauren had been laying the groundwork for her escape, and it was clear she wasn't planning to leave with just her share. She was planning to clean me out completely. I sat there in disbelief, staring at the papers for what felt like hours. How had I missed the signs? Had our entire marriage been a sham, or was it just in these last few months that she decided to become a stranger to me? The worst part, it wasn't just that she was planning to drain our accounts. It was the lie she was weaving to justify it. Lauren was already telling our friends and family that I was the one with greedy intentions. I found that out the hard way when I went out to grab a drink with a mutual friend of ours, Danny, 43M, the following weekend. Danny and I have been friends for years, long before Lauren ever entered the picture. We were sitting at the bar, making small talk about work, when he suddenly turned the conversation toward my marriage. "So, how are things with you and Lauren?" "I've been hearing some things, man," he said, his tone cautious, like he didn't want to offend me. "Things are complicated," I admitted, not wanting to get into the details just yet. "What have you heard?" He hesitated for a second, then finally spilled. "Look, I don't want to get involved in your business, but Lauren's been telling people you've been acting off, like financially speaking." My jaw clenched. "Off how?" "She's been saying that you've been moving money around, draining accounts, acting like you're preparing for something. She's worried, man. She told me you've been obsessed with money lately, talking about retirement, cutting back on expenses. She's making it sound like you're planning to take her for everything she's got." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Me? The one who was moving money around. I hadn't touched our joint accounts except to contribute my half of the bills and savings. Meanwhile, Lauren had been the one pushing for more security, telling me we needed to consolidate our finances. But here she was, flipping the script. I felt the anger rise in me like a tidal wave. She was getting ahead of the story, painting me as the villain in this twisted narrative she was concocting. I had to play it cool with Danny. I couldn't let on that I knew about the divorce papers or Lauren's plan just yet. "That's ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "If anyone's been acting weird with money, it's her. I've just been trying to make sure we're prepared for the future." Danny looked unconvinced, but he nodded slowly. "I just thought you should know what's being said. It's kind of a mess, man." "Yeah, knows asterisk asterisk T. I thanked him for letting me know, but inside, I was seething. Lauren was trying to spin the entire situation in her favor before I even had a chance to confront her. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to turn the people closest to us against me before I even knew what was happening. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I could have imagined. She was plotting to leave me with nothing, take our business, and all the while, she was making me out to be the greedy one. That night, when I got home, I started doing some digging. I went through her finances with a fine-tooth comb, and what I found was even more infuriating. Over the last few months, Lauren had been quietly moving money out of our joint accounts and into a private one, her personal account that I didn't have access to. She was siphoning funds little by little, probably thinking I wouldn't notice. But now that I knew what to look for, it was all there in black and white. That's when I realized that this wasn't just about a divorce. She was trying to leave me bankrupt, to take everything I had worked for, and she was doing it while spreading lies to our friends and family. I had been too blind to see it, but now that I knew, there was no turning back. I was going to fight her. No, I was going to destroy her. After finding out about Lauren's secret plan to drain our accounts, I couldn't sleep. Every night felt like an endless loop of anger, disbelief, and frustration. The woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with was ready to rip it all away like it meant nothing. And the worst part, she was already trying to flip the story, painting me as the bad guy. I knew I had to act quickly, or I'd be the one left with nothing. But I couldn't just confront her, not yet. Confronting her would be too easy, and if I tipped my hand too soon, she'd find a way to weasel out of it. I needed a plan, one that would not only expose her lies but also make sure she couldn't take what was rightfully mine. That's when I decided to hire a private investigator. I knew Lauren wasn't just moving money around. She was sneaky, too sneaky for this to be her first rodeo. I had a gut feeling that there was more to the story, and I was right. The next day, I contacted a private investigator named Marcus, 47M. He came highly recommended, and after explaining my situation, he didn't hesitate to take the case. Marcus had seen it all: fraud, hidden assets, affairs, you name it. He told me he'd dig into Lauren's financial records, track her movements, and find out what she was really up to. While Marcus got to work, I started playing my part in Lauren's twisted game. I had to pretend like I was oblivious, like I didn't have a clue that she was planning to bleed me dry. Every time we sat down for dinner, every casual conversation about money or future plans, I had to act like everything was fine. Inside, though, I was boiling over with rage. Lauren had no idea that I was on to her. She continued her charade, playing the doting wife while secretly moving money into her personal account. And all the while, she kept feeding lies to our friends, slowly turning them against me. Every time I saw someone from our circle, I could feel their judgment. They looked at me like I was the bad guy, like I was the one manipulating her. It didn't help that Lauren had also been dropping hints about our issues at work. We co-own a small but successful marketing agency together. We built it from the ground up, but lately she'd been throwing around comments in front of our employees about how I'd been making questionable financial decisions for the company. She was trying to sabotage me there too, laying the groundwork for when she eventually tried to take control of the business. I had no choice but to let her keep going. It was infuriating, but I needed her to feel confident that her plan was working. I had to let her dig her own grave. A week later, Marcus came back to me with some serious dirt. Not only had Lauren been siphoning money into her private account, but she had also been preparing for a life without me. She had secretly signed a lease on an apartment in a different part of town, one I had no idea about. And get this, she had already started transferring utilities in her name. She was setting up a new life, planning to leave me without a second thought. But that wasn't the worst part. Marcus had also found out that she was hiring a high-profile divorce attorney, someone known for taking men like me to the cleaners. It was clear as day that she had been plotting this for months, maybe even longer. Marcus laid everything out for me: the secret apartment, the financial transfers, the lawyer. He also mentioned that Lauren had been making frequent trips to meet with someone in the city, though he wasn't sure who yet. He promised to keep digging. I felt sick to my stomach. The betrayal was one thing, but the sheer calculation behind it made me realize I had underestimated just how ruthless she could be. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. Lauren had been planning to destroy me for a long time, and I had been too blind to see it. I knew I couldn't wait much longer to make my move. Marcus had given me enough information to take the first steps in protecting myself, but I wanted more. I wanted the full picture. So I decided to bide my time a little longer to see what else I could uncover before I confronted her. In the meantime, I started making my own preparations. I opened a separate bank account, one she didn't know about, and began moving some of my own money into it, just in case. I also contacted a lawyer of my own, someone who specialized in high-stakes divorce cases. I explained the situation, and he told me exactly what I needed to do to ensure that I wouldn't be left penniless once Lauren finally dropped the bomb. For the next few weeks, I played the game. Lauren kept up her act, pretending everything was normal while secretly preparing to rip my life apart. I pretended to be clueless, but inside, I was watching her every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then came the day that everything changed. It was a Thursday night. Lauren had gone out for one of her usual girls' nights, but Marcus had tipped me off earlier that day that she wasn't meeting her friends. She was meeting someone else, someone she had been spending a lot of time with lately. I had a bad feeling about it, so I asked Marcus to follow her and find out who she was really meeting. About an hour after Lauren left, Marcus texted me a photo that made my blood boil. Lauren wasn't with her friends. She was with her divorce attorney. They were sitting together at an upscale restaurant, deep in conversation. The way they were laughing, casually discussing their plans, made me sick to my stomach. She'd have been lying to me, lying to everyone, pretending like she was still committed to our marriage, but here she was, plotting her escape right in front of my face. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her, to force her hand before she had a chance to blindside me with divorce papers. But I knew I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just burst into the restaurant and expose her. No, that would only give her more ammunition to play the victim. Instead, I waited. I let her come home, acting like nothing had happened. When she walked through the door that night, smiling like she hadn't just spent the evening plotting my destruction, I felt a surge of anger that I barely managed to contain. "How was your night?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She gave me the same rehearsed answer she always did. "It was good. Just the usual. The girls say hi." I nodded, pretending to believe her, but inside, I was gearing up for the battle that was about to begin. Lauren thought she had me right where she wanted me, but she had no idea that the tables were about to turn. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to confront her, but not before I had every last piece of information I needed to expose her for the liar she truly was. The morning after I saw Lauren with her divorce attorney, everything seemed to slow down around me. My mind was racing, but I knew I had to stay calm and focused if I wanted to come out of this without losing everything. Lauren was sharp, calculating, and cunning. If I let my emotions get the better of me, she'd tear me apart in court and ruin my reputation in the process. I spent the next few days preparing. I gathered every document, every bank statement, and every receipt I could find that showed the financial trail she'd have been leaving behind. I met with my lawyer and gave him everything I had, including Marcus' findings. He was impressed by how thorough I had been and assured me that we had enough to turn the tables on Lauren when the time was right. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something I was missing, something even bigger that she was hiding from me. I knew about the secret apartment, the hidden bank account, and the lawyer. I knew she was planning to leave me with nothing, but I felt like there was something more. My instincts told me that whatever it was, it could completely change the outcome of this battle. I called Marcus and asked him to dig deeper. I wanted to know if there was anyone else involved, anyone who might be helping Lauren in her scheme. I had no idea what I was asking for at the time, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still in the dark about something. A few days later, Marcus called me back with news I wasn't expecting. "Hey, I found something," he said, his voice low and serious. I wasn't sure if it was important at first, but the more I dug, the more it started to make sense. "What is it?" I asked, my stomach twisting with nerves. "Lauren's been making regular payments to a private investigator, a guy named Harris." I cross-referenced him with some of the financial transfers I found, and it looks like she's been paying him for months. "Then she'd hired him to follow you." I froze. Lauren had been spying on me. My head spun with questions. Why would she hire someone to follow me? What was she looking for? I hadn't done anything wrong, hadn't given her any reason to suspect me of anything. It didn't make sense, unless she was trying to frame me. She's building a case, I muttered to myself. She's trying to make it look like I'm the one at fault. It all clicked. The comments she'd been making to our friends, the way she had been subtly undermining me at work, and now this, the private investigator. Lauren was setting me up. She was creating a narrative where I was the bad guy, the one who was hiding things, the one who was greedy and deceitful. She was planning to use whatever Harris found to paint me as the villain in our divorce. Suddenly, I remembered the camera. A few weeks back, I had noticed a strange, small device hidden behind a bookshelf in our living room. At the time, I thought it was nothing, a leftover gadget from when we'd done some remodeling. But now, I realized it was likely part of her plan. Lauren had been collecting evidence, trying to trap me in some fabricated scenario that would make me look guilty. I couldn't let her get away with this. If she was going to play dirty, then I had no choice but to fight back with everything I had. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my computer, combing through every text message, email, and social media interaction between me and Lauren. I needed to find something, anything, that would expose her for what she really was. Hours passed, and just when I thought I had hit a dead end, I found it. Buried deep in our shared email account, in a folder I didn't even know existed, were messages between Lauren and Harris. They had been discussing me, how to catch me in compromising situations, how to twist my words and actions to fit the narrative she was building. There were even references to photos she had staged, making it look like I had been with other women. The emails were sickening. Lauren had gone to incredible lengths to destroy me, and now I had the proof I needed to fight back. The next morning, I called Marcus and my lawyer. We sat down and went over everything, every message, every email, every shady transaction. I wanted to be prepared for whatever Lauren threw my way. Later that evening, Lauren came home as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and went about her usual routine. It was like watching a master manipulator in action. She was so good at pretending, at making everything seem normal. But I couldn't pretend anymore. Over dinner, I looked her in the eyes and asked, "So, how's your lawyer doing?" Lauren's fork froze midway to her mouth, her expression carefully controlled, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice calm but guarded. "I know everything, Lauren," I continued, keeping my tone even. "The apartment, the hidden account, the investigator, you've been planning this for months. You've been spying on me, trying to frame me as the bad guy. But guess what? I'm not as stupid as you think." Her face went pale. For the first time in months, I saw her lose control. She stammered, trying to come up with a response, but nothing came out. The facade she had carefully built over the past year was crumbling right in front of me. I stood up and walked around the table, leaning in close so she could see just how serious I was. "You've been playing this game, thinking you're smarter than everyone else. But now, I've got all the evidence I need to show the world who you really are. You're not going to take me down, Lauren. Not this time." She didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring at me, her expression a mix of shock and panic. She knew the jig was up. There was no way out for her now. As I left the room, I could hear her chair scrape against the floor as she stood up, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to see her reaction. I had already won. For the next few days, Lauren tried to salvage what was left of her plan. She made desperate attempts to reach out to our friends, to twist the story in her favor, but it was too late. I had already exposed her lies, and no one was buying her act anymore. Lauren had always been the type of person who could charm her way through any situation. No matter how deep she was in the wrong, she could twist the truth just enough to make it seem like she was the victim. But now, with everything out in the open, her usual tactics weren't working. Our friends, our family, even her closest allies, were beginning to see her for who she really was. In the days following our confrontation, Lauren launched a full-scale offensive, trying to regain control of the narrative. She was relentless, calling mutual friends, sending emails to colleagues, and even visiting some of our neighbors, spinning a sob story about how I had turned on her, how I was the controlling one, how I had pushed her to these desperate measures. Her favorite accusation was that I had been withholding money from her for years, controlling our finances to the point where she felt like she had no choice but to create her secret account. She painted herself as a victim of financial abuse, claiming that I had left her no option but to protect herself by stashing money away. It was the perfect lie because it played into people's preconceived notions about powerful men controlling their wives, and Lauren knew exactly how to tug at those strings. I found out about her smear campaign through one of my closest friends, Greg, who had been hearing all sorts of rumors from people we both knew. He called me up, voice full of concern. "Hey, man, I don't know how to tell you this, but Lauren's been making the rounds. She's saying some pretty crazy stuff about how you've been controlling her financially, that you're not letting her access your joint accounts, stuff like that. You know it's bullsh asterisk T, right? But some people, well, you know how people love to gossip." I sighed. "Yeah, I figured she'd pull something like this. Thanks for the heads up, Greg. I'm dealing with it." Greg paused for a moment, his voice lowering. "I don't know, man. It seems like she's really ramping things up. A few people even mentioned she's been in touch with some journalists, talking about making this whole thing public. I think she's looking to drag your name through the mud on a much bigger scale." My blood ran cold. Of course, she wasn't content with just ruining me among our inner circle. Lauren wanted to take this to the public, make it a spectacle, a scandal. She knew I had a reputation to protect, especially with my business connections and the people I worked with. She was targeting the one thing I couldn't afford to lose, my professional reputation. "Thanks for the heads up, Greg," I said, keeping my voice calm even though I could feel the anger simmering beneath the surface. "I'll take care of it." I hung up the phone and sat down at my desk, my hands shaking slightly. Lauren was going all out, using every trick in the book to flip the narrative on me. If this got out to the press, it wouldn't matter if I had evidence. People love a scandal, and public opinion could ruin me faster than any courtroom battle. I knew I had to act quickly. I reached out to my lawyer and explained the situation, letting him know about the new developments. He listened carefully, then gave me a piece of advice that would ultimately turn the tide in my favor. "Listen, Lauren's trying to paint you as the villain here, and she's hoping public opinion will do the work for her. But if you can get ahead of this, if you can present your side before she makes her big move, you'll be the one in control of the narrative. People love a redemption story, especially when it's backed up by cold, hard facts." He was right. I had to get ahead of this. The next morning, I made the decision to go public, not with a scandal, but with the truth. I reached out to a few key people I trusted, including a well-respected journalist who had always been fair and balanced in his reporting. I provided him with all the evidence I had: Lauren's financial schemes, the secret accounts, her conversations with the private investigator, everything. I didn't want to paint her as the villain. I just wanted the truth out there before she could twist it any further. A few days later, the article was published. It wasn't sensationalized or full of gossip. It was simply the facts, laid out for everyone to see. Lauren's plan to drain our accounts, her secret meetings with a divorce lawyer, and her attempts to frame me as the controlling, greedy husband were all exposed. The article also included an interview with my lawyer, who explained that I had never tried to control Lauren financially and that she had access to all our joint accounts whenever she wanted. The evidence spoke for itself. The fallout was immediate. Lauren was furious. She called me multiple times that day, leaving angry voicemails filled with threats and accusations. She accused me of betraying her, of ruining her life, and of turning everyone against her. But the truth was, Lauren had turned everyone against herself. Her lies had finally caught up to her, and there was no escaping the consequences. I wasn't surprised when I found out that some of her friends had distanced themselves from her after the article came out. People who had once believed her story were starting to see her for who she really was, someone who would go to any length to protect herself, even if it meant destroying the people around her. But Lauren wasn't done fighting. A few days after the article was published, I received a letter from her lawyer, accusing me of defamation and demanding a retraction. They claimed that I had misrepresented the facts, that I had painted Lauren in a negative light without any justification. It was a weak attempt to salvage what little credibility she had left, and my lawyer wasn't concerned. "Let them try," he said confidently. "We have the truth on our side, and they know it." Lauren's legal threats didn't scare me. I had already won the public battle, and now I was ready to win the legal one too. She was grasping at straws, trying to salvage her reputation, but there was nothing left to save. As the days turned into weeks, the rumors and accusations faded away. People moved on to the next scandal, and Lauren's smear campaign lost its momentum. I, on the other hand, was finally able to breathe again, knowing that the truth had come out and that I wasn't going to lose everything I had worked for. But despite the victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Lauren was still out there, plotting her next move. I knew her too well to believe she would go down quietly. She was the kind of person who thrived on control and manipulation, and I had taken that away from her. The weeks after the article's release felt like a temporary calm, but I knew better than to think this was the end of Lauren's schemes. She'd had gone quiet, eerily so. My phone, which had once been buzzing with angry calls and texts from her, had fallen silent. No more cryptic emails, no more legal threats. It felt like the eye of the storm, a quiet that made me more uneasy than anything else. One afternoon, as I was going through some documents for work, my phone buzzed again. It was from Greg, my best friend, the one who had warned me about Lauren's smear campaign in the first place. He never called unless it was something serious. "Man, I need to tell you something," Greg said, his voice low. "I've been hearing some new stuff about Lauren. You're not going to believe what she's planning next." I braced myself. "What now?" "She's been trying to dig up dirt on you. I'm talking about anything and everything. Apparently, she's even hired another private investigator. And she's planning to file some kind of restraining order, claiming you've been harassing her. She's telling people you're the one stalking her, sending threats, all kinds of insane stuff." I felt the anger rise up in my chest. After everything I had exposed about her, after how I had proven her lies, she was still coming after me. And now she was trying to turn me into the villain in her twisted narrative. "She's really trying to flip the script," Greg continued. "I've even heard whispers that she's trying to take this public again. Some kind of story about how she's afraid for her life and how you've been intimidating her ever since the divorce. She's playing the victim harder than ever." I clenched my fists, the frustration surging. It didn't matter what I did. Lauren was never going to stop. She was determined to ruin me, no matter how many lies she had to tell. I hung up with Greg and called my lawyer immediately, explaining everything I just heard. "Honestly, this is just noise," my lawyer said. "She doesn't have a leg to stand on. You haven't done anything wrong, and she knows it. But if she's looking to file false claims, we need to be ready. Let's get ahead of this before she even has the chance to escalate." I agreed, and over the next few days, we prepared for whatever legal drama Lauren had brewing. I filed a formal request for a restraining order against her, citing her ongoing harassment and the damage she'd already done to my reputation. I wasn't going to let her turn the tables on me, not after everything she had put me through. Then the bombshell dropped. One morning, as I was having breakfast, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line immediately caught my attention: proof of Lauren's real intentions. My pulse quickened as I clicked it open. The email contained several attachments, including a string of emails between Lauren and someone I didn't recognize. As I read through them, I realized what I was looking at. Lauren had been plotting her next move for weeks, and these emails detailed her entire plan. She was planning to fake harassment claims, create false evidence of me threatening her, and use it to file a restraining order. But that wasn't all. The emails revealed her real endgame. She wasn't just looking to destroy my reputation. She was trying to force me into a settlement, one that would give her a significant chunk of our remaining joint assets. She was planning to take what was left of my business funds and savings, using her fabricated story as leverage. In one of the emails, she explicitly stated that she was planning to push him to his breaking point, so I'd be desperate enough to settle out of court. The anger I had been holding back for weeks finally exploded. She wasn't just trying to ruin me publicly, she was trying to bankrupt me, using false accusations to paint me as a monster and a criminal. I forwarded the emails to my lawyer, who responded almost immediately. "This is the break we needed. With this, we can not only stop her, but we can file charges for defamation and extortion. She's digging her own grave." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. I finally had the upper hand. I arranged a meeting with my lawyer, and we began building our case against Lauren, We prepared to file charges not just for defamation, but also for harassment and fraudulent attempts to gain assets through deceit. But it didn't end there. As we were finalizing our case, I received another email, this time from someone who claimed to have been one of Lauren's partners in crime. It was an old friend of hers, a woman named Rachel, who had apparently fallen out with Lauren after realizing the depths of her deception. Rachel had sent me screenshots of text messages between her and Lauren, where Lauren had detailed her plan to ruin me. In one particularly damning message, Lauren had boasted about how she was going to bleed me dry and ruin my life for good. She even bragged about manipulating people into believing her stories, laughing at how gullible they were. The screenshots were the final nail in the coffin. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, and within a week, we had filed our charges against Lauren. She was served with legal papers soon after, and this time, there was no running away from the consequences. The legal battle dragged on for months, but I refused to back down. Lauren's lies, manipulation, and schemes were finally exposed in court. The evidence was overwhelming, and she couldn't spin her way out of it anymore. Not only did I win the case, but Lauren was also ordered to pay damages for defamation and harassment. Her plan to take my assets and ruin my reputation had backfired spectacularly. But even with the legal victory, I knew I would never be free of the damage Lauren had done. The scars, emotional, financial, and professional, would remain for a long time. Friends I had lost during the smear campaign, business connections that had been strained, and the trust I had in people had all been shattered. In the end, Lauren's desperation had destroyed her, not me. She had tried to burn everything to the ground, but all she had done was ensure her own downfall. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces, rebuild what I could, and move forward knowing that I had survived the storm she had unleashed. And that was enough.